There's a bottle sitting on the bottom shelf of almost every drugstore in America. It costs about $6. The label looks like it was designed in 1987 by someone who had given up. The juice inside is a strange amber color, and if you walked past it 100 times, you'd never give it a second look. But here is what almost nobody talks about. That $6 bottle, the one quietly being phased out of shelves and pulled from online listings one region at a time, has been outlasting $300 designer fragrances on people's skin for almost 40 years. And the reason it's being discontinued isn't because it stopped working. It's because it worked too well, for too cheap, for too long. The name on the label simply says Perfume. No brand worth bragging about, no celebrity endorsement, no marketing budget. Just a thick, oily, old-school formulation that the modern fragrance industry has spent the last 2 decades quietly trying to bury. Because nothing terrifies a luxury house more than a customer who realizes they don't need to spend $300 to smell good for 16 hours straight. So why is it disappearing? Why are the shelves slowly going empty? And what exactly is inside that little brown bottle that makes a Tom Ford or a Creed evaporate in comparison? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand something the industry has been counting on you never figuring out. Let's start with what's actually happening on your skin when you spray a modern designer fragrance. You walk into a department store, you smell something incredible at the counter, the sales associate sprays your wrist. And for about 20 minutes, you are convinced you found the love of your life. Then you get in the car. By the time you reach home, it's gone. Faint, a ghost. You spend the next 3 hours leaning into your own wrist trying to catch a whiff of the $280 you just spent. This is not your imagination. This is not your skin chemistry, despite what the lady at the counter told you. This is the modern fragrance industry, and it's been engineered this way on purpose. Most designer fragrances today are eau de toilette or light eau de parfum concentrations, hovering somewhere between 8% and 15% fragrance oil. The rest is denatured alcohol and water. Alcohol evaporates fast. That's its job. It carries the scent up off your skin in a beautiful opening burst. The kind that sells bottles at the counter, and then it vanishes, taking most of the perfume with it. What you're left with is whatever oils were heavy enough to cling on, which in a lot of modern reformulations is almost nothing, and there's a reason for that. Back in 2009, and again in subsequent updates, the International Fragrance Association, the IFRA, started tightening restrictions on dozens of classic ingredients. Oak moss, the backbone of old chypres, real civet, certain nitro musks, high concentrations of bergamot, birch tar. The list goes on. These ingredients were the anchors. They were the reason your mother's bottle of Mitsuko or your grandfather's Aramis still smelled like something 5 hours after he walked out the door. When the industry pulled those out and reformulated, they didn't replace them with anything equally tenacious. They replaced them with cleaner, safer, lighter synthetics that smell beautiful for 40 minutes and then quietly excuse themselves. Now here is where the $6 bottle enters the story. The kind of cheap drugstore parfum I'm talking about, the ones with names like Coty, Jovan, Prince Machiavelli, Dana, the old original skin musk, the original Jovan musk oil, Coty's wild musk, the taboo reformulations that still cling to the older base. These formulas were created in a different era. Many of them were designed in the late 1960s and 1970s when the rules were looser, the oils were cheaper. Synthetic musks were dirt cheap to produce in bulk, and the goal wasn't to be elegant. The goal was to be loud, to be sticky, to last from the moment a woman left her house in the morning until she came home from her shift at night. These bottles weren't perfumes in the high fashion sense. They were workhorses. And the formulators back then used a much higher ratio of fragrance oil to alcohol, sometimes pushing 20%, 25%, even 30% in the so-called perfume oil versions. With a heavy base of synthetic musks like galaxolide, tonalide, the older nitro musks that have since been restricted but were grandfathered into existing formulas for decades. Those musks have a quality the modern industry can no longer legally replicate at the same concentration. They bind to skin, they don't evaporate, they actually amplify in body heat. A single dab of an old-school musk oil from a $6 drugstore bottle can still be detectable on a sweater 24 hours later. Try that with your $300 bottle of niche juice and report back. And before I go any further, if you've ever stood in a drugstore aisle, wondered which other cheap bottles are quietly outlasting the designer ones sitting on your dresser, hit subscribe, because the next one I'm going to break down is the bottle perfumers genuinely do not want casual shoppers to find out about. And I want to know in the comments right now, what's the perfume that dies on you in 2 hours? And what's the cheapest thing you own that somehow lasts all day? Drop both. I read them. And if you want to guess which discontinued $6 bottle I'm building toward, take your shot before the end. Now, I want to be careful here, because this channel lives and dies on credibility. There's a popular claim floating around the internet that cheap perfumes contain more oil than expensive ones, and that's why they last longer. That is partially true and partially a myth, and the distinction matters. The fact is, concentration percentage on the label does not always correlate to retail price. A drugstore parfum oil can absolutely contain a higher percentage of aromatic compounds than a designer eau de toilette. That's verifiable. What's not true is the lazy claim that all cheap perfumes last longer than all expensive ones. They don't. Plenty of drugstore body sprays vanish in 20 minutes because they're mostly water and a whisper of synthetic. The real pattern is more specific. It's the old-school oil-based, musk-heavy drugstore formulations from a specific era. The ones using legacy bases that predate the tightest IFRA restrictions that punch way above their weight. And those are exactly the ones being quietly discontinued. Because the parent companies that bought up these old brands, Coty owns a huge chunk of them, don't want to invest in reformulating a $6 product to meet new standards. It's cheaper to just let the SKU die. Go on Reddit right now. Go to IFRA, fragrance sur IFRA, cologne sur IFRA, designer fragrances. Search for threads about Coty Wild Musk or Jovan Musk Oil or the original Skin Musk by Bonnabelle or Prince Machiavelli Windsong. You will find thousands of comments, many from people in their 50s and 60s. Many from people in their 20s who discovered these by accident, all saying the same thing. It lasts longer than my Chanel. It lasts longer than my Dior. My husband can smell it on me the next morning. I get more compliments on this $6 bottle than I ever did on the bottle I saved up 3 paychecks for. On Fragrantica, the longevity votes on some of these old drugstore musks consistently rate higher than mid-tier designer releases from the last 5 years. These are not paid reviewers, these are not influencers, these are regular people posting from their kitchens telling the truth, and the perfume community has known this for years. It's only the casual shopper, the one who walks into Sephora and trusts the lighting and the marketing, who doesn't. Here's another piece of the puzzle that almost nobody connects. The drugstore parfum format, the small bottle with the screw cap and the dauber wand instead of an atomizer, was designed for a different application method. You don't spray it, you dab it. A dab of oil-based parfum delivers a much higher concentration of fragrance to a single point on the skin than 3-4 sprays of an alcohol-based eau de toilette. The alcohol in modern sprays doesn't just evaporate, it actively volatilizes the aromatic molecules, lifting them off the skin into the air. That's what creates sillage, that beautiful cloud people walk through. But sillage is the enemy of longevity. Every molecule floating through the air is a molecule that's no longer on your wrist. The old drugstore oils don't have that problem. They sit, they soak in. They warm up with your skin and release slowly over hours and hours. It's a completely different delivery system, and the industry stopped making it, not because customers stopped wanting it. Because oil-based products have lower margins, more complicated regulatory paperwork under modern guidelines, and don't fit the luxury retail experience. You can't charge $300 for a dauber bottle. The format itself screams cheap, so it had to die. And let's talk about which specific bottles I'm pointing at, because by now you deserve names. The original Coty Wild Musk cologne, in that little rib bottle that's been around since 1973, is one of them. The Jovan Musk oil from 1971, still hanging on in some stores but vanishing fast from major chains. The Bonnabelle Skin Musk, which was discontinued and then partially revived under different ownership, has bounced in and out of availability for the last 15 years. The original Taboo Parfum, created by Jean Carles in 1932, one of the most legendary perfumers in history. The same man who created Miss Dior and Ma Griff, and yet today you can find a small bottle of Taboo for under $10 in some drugstores. Jean Carles, working at the peak of his craft, designed that fragrance to be a powerhouse. Even the reformulated modern version retains enough of that DNA to outlast most things sitting on a luxury counter. There's also the old Prince Machiavelli Windsong, Cachet, the original Emeraude by Coty, which was created by Francois Coty himself in 1921. Is the ancestor of basically every oriental fragrance you've ever smelled, including Shalimar. Emeraude, in its current $6 drugstore form, is a shadow of its vintage self. Every fragrance form will tell you that. But it still lasts longer on skin than most things that cost 50 times as much. That is not opinion, that is documented in longevity votes across Fragrantica and Base Notes going back over a decade. Now, the hook of this video promised you one bottle in particular. The $6 bottle that outlasts any $300 designer perfume. The one being discontinued for a reason. And the reason I've been building this slowly is because the answer is actually a category, not a single SKU. And the specific bottle that wins depends on what's still on the shelf in your region this week. But if I had to point at one, the one that gets named over and over again in fragrance communities, the one that vintage collectors hoard on eBay when they spot the older batches, the one that has been quietly cut from major chains over the past 3 years, it's the old Cody Musk family. Specifically the original wild musk oil and wild musk cologne in the small dauber bottles. $6 or less when you can still find them, sometimes $4. The formula was built on a base of galaxolide, a blend of synthetic civet-like musks that the modern IFRA framework no longer permits at the same levels in newly developed fragrances. Existing formulas were allowed to continue under grandfather clauses for decades, but as parent companies consolidate, reformulate to simplify global compliance, those legacy versions are being deleted one batch at a time. When the current stock runs out, the version that replaces it will not be the same. The longevity will drop, the depth will drop, the skin binding quality will be gone, and it will still be sold under the same name, because that's how the industry handles these transitions. Quietly. No announcement. No press release. The bottle on the shelf just slowly becomes a different product, and only the people who remember will notice. So here's what to do with this information. If you have an older relative who still has a half-used bottle of any of these old drugstore musks, parfums on their dresser, do not throw it away. That is a piece of history, and in many cases, the older the batch, the better the formulation, because it predates more rounds of IFRA tightening. If you want to test the theory yourself, walk into a CVS, a Walgreens, a Walmart, look at the bottom shelf of the fragrance aisle, the section nobody photographs for Instagram, pick up the smallest, ugliest, most dated-looking bottle you can find with the word parfum or musk oil on it. Spend the $6, dab it, don't spray it. Put it on your inner elbow, behind your ear, on the back of your neck. Then go about your day and pay attention at hour 6, hour 8, hour 12. You will understand in a way no review or article can teach you exactly what the industry has been quietly taking away from you for the last 20 years. And once you know, you can't unknow it. The final thing I'll leave you with is this. The luxury fragrance industry isn't lying to you exactly. They really are using beautiful ingredients. The juice in a Tom Ford or a Creed or a Maison Francis Kurkdjian really is, in many cases, made from higher quality aromatic materials than a $6 drugstore bottle. But quality of ingredients and longevity on skin are two completely different things, and the industry has spent decades letting you confuse them. A Picasso painting and a tattoo are both art. Only one of them stays on your body all day. That's the trade. And nobody at the counter is going to tell you, because nobody at the counter gets a commission on the $6 bottle. If this rearranged the way you think about your shelf, tell me in the comments which old drugstore bottle you want me to dig into next. I have a list of 3 more being quietly discontinued right now. The next one involves a perfumer's name you'd recognize from a fragrance that currently sells for over $400 an ounce. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because once these bottles are gone, they're gone, and the version that replaces them will never smell the same.